The most recent amendment to the United States Constitution was written in 1789 and ratified in 1992, 202 years later. It finally passed because a college sophomore got a C on a term paper and refused to let it go. This is the full story. In the summer of 1789, the very first Congress took up the problem of amending the brand new Constitution. James Madison drafted the proposals, and that September, Congress sent 12 amendments to the states for ratification. 10 of them would become the Bill of Rights. Tucked in at number 2 was a rule about money. No law-changing congressional pay could take effect until an election of representatives had intervened. In other words, Congress could vote itself a raise, but only the next Congress, after facing the voters, could collect it. Madison's reasoning was blunt. There was, he told the House, a seeming impropriety in leaving any set of men without control to, quote, put their hand into the public coffers, to take out money to put in their pockets. The states didn't bite. By the end of 1791, 10 of the 12 articles had been ratified, the Bill of Rights. The pay amendment stalled at 6 of the 11 states it then needed, and the ratifications simply stopped. But here's the fine print. Nobody had attached a deadline. The amendment slept for 8 decades, until 1873, when Congress voted itself a 50% raise and made it retroactive, 2 years of back pay in a lump sum. The press called it the salary grab. Ohio's legislature was so incensed that it dug up Madison's amendment and ratified it in protest. The outrage faded, and the amendment went back to sleep. A century later, in 1978, Wyoming pulled the same move after another congressional pay raise. That made 8 states on the books, out of the 38 now required. Nobody in Washington was counting. Enter Gregory Watson. In early 1982, he was a 19-year-old sophomore at the University of Texas at Austin, hunting for a government term paper topic on the Equal Rights Amendment, whose own ratification deadline was about to run out. In the library stacks, he pulled a government reference book and found a chapter he didn't expect. Amendments Congress had approved that the states had never ratified. And there was Madison's pay amendment, with no deadline attached. Ever, by anyone. Watson switched topics on the spot. His paper argued that the amendment was still legally alive, still pending before the states, and could still be ratified. 192 years later, the teaching assistant gave it a C. He appealed to the instructor, Sharon Waite. She let the C stand. Watson later summed up his reaction in one line: "I'm going to get that thing ratified." His tools were an IBM Selectric typewriter, postage stamps, and a day job as an aide in the Texas legislature. This was 1982. No internet, no email, just letters. He typed letters to members of Congress and to state legislators, hunting for anyone willing to sponsor a ratification. Most never wrote back. But Senator William Cohen of Maine passed the idea along to his home state. And in April 1983, Maine ratified. The first domino. Colorado followed in 1984, and then the campaign found its rhythm. State legislators, it turns out, love voting to restrain congressional pay. It costs them nothing and plays well at home. 5 states ratified in 1985, 3 more in 1986. Through the late 80s, the letters kept going out, and the count kept climbing. Watson would eventually spend several $1,000s of his own money on the campaign. In 1989 alone, 7 states ratified. By the spring of 1992, the tally on the books stood at 35, 3 short. The end came in a rush. On May 5, 1992, Missouri and Alabama both ratified, 36 and 37. 2 days later, Michigan and New Jersey raced to be number 38, and Michigan voted first. Headlines announced that Michigan had completed Madison's amendment at last. Now for the fine print. Remember those first 6 states? There was a 7th. Kentucky had ratified the amendment in June 1792, in its first month of statehood. And then everyone forgot, including Kentucky. Watson himself didn't learn of it until 1997. Count Kentucky, and the 38th state wasn't Michigan at all. It was Alabama, 2 days earlier. Either way, the states had spoken, but one last fight remained. Certifying amendments falls to the Archivist of the United States, Don Wilson. Senior members of Congress, Senator Robert Byrd, loudest among them, insisted Congress itself should judge whether a 200-year-old ratification could count. Wilson's answer, "I'm going to certify this, and you can challenge it." On May 18, 1992, in a quiet ceremony at the National Archives, Wilson certified the 27th Amendment. 2 days later, Congress fell in line and affirmed it overwhelmingly, 99-0 in the Senate, 414-3 in the House, 202 years, 7 months, and 10 days after Congress proposed it. Madison's rule was the law of the land, the longest ratification in American history. Though courts have since read it narrowly, automatic cost of living adjustments, they've ruled, don't count, which leaves the grade. In 2017, a University of Texas government professor named Zachary Elkins tracked down Sharon Waite, who had long since left teaching, and asked if she would sign a grade change form 35 years late. She did. Her written justification cited the student's, quote, "heroic efforts to prove the professor and TA wrong," and concluded that Mr. Watson deserved an A+. The University of Texas doesn't ordinarily award A+. The paperwork went through anyway, and Madison's amendment isn't the last of its kind. 4 more amendments, the oldest dating back to 1789, are still technically pending before the states. No deadline, no expiration. All it took last time was one student who wouldn't take a C. This has been history's fine print. Sources on screen and in the description.